We don't even talk anymore. We don't even know what we argue about. Don't even say I love you no more. 'Cause saying how we feel is no longer allowed. Some people work things out and some just don't know how to change. Let's don't wait till the water runs dry. We might watch our whole lives pass us by. Let's don't wait till the water runs dry. We'll make the biggest mistake of our lives. Don't do it, baby. Ooh. No. What's up, everybody? It's me, Danae. I'm here with a message for you, and that was the channeled song while I was pre-shuffling. And this is the card that I landed on after the cut. As promised, I'm going to kind of start with a bit of a preview that I did off camera so that hopefully it'll shave some time off. And that was more or less the energy. Well, first of all, the two cards that were most prominent connected to that song, which was just blasting in my spirit, were the Death card and the Ace of Cups. So there's some, the well has run dry for someone, or it's the end of the road for what could or used, or what could have been, or what used to be some resource or access to unconditional love, or just a really pure love source or emotional refuge even. And then, as I said, I shuffled a bit more, saw some other cards that aligned with that energy. The Nine of Swords definitely stuck out. That somebody is definitely in a heartbreak space right now. Whether how pure that heartbreak truly is remains to be seen. Whether or not it truly is a love loss, or if just someone is feeling the brunt of having lost something pure, and I say that because I didn't get the sense that there was an appreciation for the access or the connection, that was had, or that there was proximity to, whatever that is, whether it was a relationship, a friendship, a place that felt safe, even a state of mind or an emotional state that was more grounded and more fulfilled, a more fulfilled sense of life. There seemed to be a taking for granted. You know how it is. We don't know what we got till it's gone. So the reason why I correct myself in saying I don't know how pure the heartbreak is or the love loss is, is because I don't know if somebody's was really in love and they lost the love of their life, or lost something they loved a lot, and now they're legitimately feeling the disconnection, or it's, like I said, the classic case of you just don't know what you got until it's gone, but when you had it, you ain't know what to do with it type of energy. And so what the Hermit is telling me to kind of end the pre-shuffle and begin the reading. So what happened is I finished cutting the cards. My son came in, didn't really realize that I may have placed the deck down. I may have like shifted the deck or placed it down upside down. So when I turned it over to see the bottom card, to my surprise, it was pretty much reversed, So what that's saying to me is that, and if you know that I hardly really ever get reversals all like that. Like it's really a strong message when I do. So what it's saying to me is that someone is either having a hard time in their solitude or singlehood, is not really feeling good about being alone, or they could feel alone even within, like somehow feel isolated within a crowd. They may even be afraid to be alone, or trying to avoid being alone by themselves because of this lack of emotional security that they're feeling at this time. They're just not feeling in a loving place. I just got that. Ooh, that's deep. Especially coming up with the Death card. That could even be, someone kind of needing to be on watch, by being by themselves, or they might even be afraid to be alone with themselves because they don't know what they'll do, or they may not trust themselves to be alone, or maybe others don't trust them to be alone. I didn't really see that while I was shuffling, but now with this card, that kind of puts another spin on it. Wow. But either way, with it being in reverse, upright, is nothing wrong with this. I mean, the Hermit is actually a really strong card. It's definitely a calling to self-reflect, to discover, to kind of be in like spiritual isolation in a sense, or at least I like to call it solitude, spiritual solitude, where you just really need to dig yourself, figure out what's going on with you, and hopefully to gain some direction or insight on where to next, in the most positive light. And it could be as simple as someone avoiding that much, it's like, I don't want to do all that, or I don't feel like doing all that. But they may or may not be coming to a place of no return, where it's like, well, you kind of don't have a choice, like something has to give. Whereas I said, this person may in fact become a grave danger, emphasis on the word grave, to themselves, whether it be by their, kind of like the torment that they're putting themselves through, just maybe even overthinking, or circulating really negative emotions or energies, and or what was the other thing that I heard? Just delaying the inevitable, which in this case would be their own healing and evolution, yeah, like really needing to take a deep dive, and somebody kind of wants to stay shallow and on the surface. So they may be trying to do all the things that keep them more surface, afloat on the surface, maybe perhaps even to the public, or to people that would be observing, or looking, or at least they think so. But here it is again, as I said, it's either that they are afraid to be alone with themselves for fear of what they might do, or what, as my phone goes off at 4:38, which is 411, like 411, afraid of what they might do, or how they might be overcome with a sense of like emptiness and despair, maybe even fear, and what that might, what that oversaturation might drive them to. And or, as I said, people are observing them not quite being themselves, or at least not being what they are accustomed to them being, whether it's by presentation, by things that they say, how they're reacting and responding, is starting to wear on them in some way that's quite visible and apparent, and it's causing some type of deep concern, Interesting. All right. Well, I'm going to turn the deck up right. And obviously, with the song Water Runs Dry, it's like, it's about really not letting time run out, you know, and not letting, like, taking for granted the moment, the opportunity, maybe perhaps a connection. But what I was getting is that, as I said, someone has already done that, or feels like they have. Like they feel a bit hopeless at this time, like they have exhausted all possibilities. You know, there's no more opportunity or time to fix what's broken. And that doesn't have to be exclusive to an intimate partnership, of course, but whatever it is, it's like there's an urgence here, like, well, let's not wait until there is nothing left. In this case, it could be someone's higher self or supreme self or inner consciousness urging them not to expend all of their energy in a negative space. You know, don't drain yourself dry, focusing your energy on things that don't really matter. You know, like, you'll regret it later. You may have regrets now about what has already been, but if you continue down this path and allow yourself to spiral, it'll be even more of a regret later that you didn't do something in this moment to just shift, you know. So it could be romantic, could be spiritual, probably a little bit of both, and all the other things you could possibly think of. But the Hermit has come up yet again, and I think it popped up last reading, that it really comes down to someone just being okay. First of all, not being okay, and that is okay, but also being okay with being alone, you know, for whatever it's worth. All right, so I don't know if that's going to carry out through the message. It may or may not. Maybe that's just a little bit of a pre-message, but we'll see. Let's shuffle. Boys to men. So this definitely could be about, you know, the growing pains that someone's finally having to face, you know, or may even be resisting maturing in a certain way where they can't delay evolution. They can't delay growing up or changing their ways, doing something different, thinking differently. You know, as the Bible says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became an adult, more or less paraphrasing, I put away my childish things. So it could even be something like that here, connected to the artist that sang the song. All right, yeah, this is somebody being urged to walk away. Let's see. Oh, towards some new opportunity. Excuse me. Let's see. What else with that Ace of Wands? But then I just heard spare the rod, spoil the child. And when I pulled the Ace of Wands, not gonna lie, I felt like a dual energy from that. It's like, definitely there's an opportunity here. It could be, I feel like I want to say a consequence or just a rebuke maybe, but it's in good faith, it's in good nature, a good favor for whomever is assigned to. So it's like, sometimes when you're in the thick of a transformational moment or a transitional time, what you're facing could seem challenging or harsh even at times, especially when it's of a divine ordinance. It sometimes can even seem unfair, or just, what's the right word, like bigger than you, or No, well, yes, but that's not what I really felt. Like more than you can handle, maybe perhaps. Um, but usually when you go through it, when you really face the challenge or stand up to it, or take it on or overcome whatever the challenge is, you often view it in hindsight as an opportunity. You see it as something that you couldn't have done without, probably. That really did bring you to a transformational state of being. Again, that boys to men type of energy. Could be somebody facing a dark night of the soul, because like I said, I did see that 9 of Swords. And when you're facing that, and sometimes that could even come either by way of a breakup or some type of disconnection. Again, going into hermit mode can be a result of that season. And when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it's like, what the hell is this? Literally. But if you can persevere, a lot of times you'll be, look at this, the Ace of Cups. Yeah. A lot of times you'll feel like, man, like you almost feel grateful for it. You know what I mean? So here we are with 2 gifts, the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Cups. So someone could be heading off to, it could be as primitive as I said, someone leaving a situation or something, kind of like drying up from a situation that was revered in some way, shape, or form. I know I definitely did sense that there could have been a lack of appreciation, and that could definitely be the case, but it could also be that with the 8 of Cups especially, that someone just became complacent in a situation, as if that's like almost settled, like that was the best they could do, that was their best option, or they didn't really foresee there being anything better to look forward to. And then at the moment of a breakup, or being isolated from a group, or being maybe even what's the word that I just heard, rejected, or damn, it was a word that I felt like almost put out in a sense. It could feel like the most devastating thing that could ever happen to you, especially when you've grown accustomed to something, or complacent with a person, or in a place, or doing a thing that you almost never really visualized or imagine yourself doing, being, or going without. It's like, now what type of energy, when the 8 of Cups actually kind of like it kind of indicates that there wasn't satisfaction and fulfillment in whatever is being left behind anyway, but you can almost pretty much convince yourself of such, or just suck it up, especially if you don't feel like there is much to look forward to otherwise. So again, this could be a relationship. It just could be a place that someone accepted less than what satisfied them, maybe perhaps even less than what they're worth, less love, less motivation, less inspiration. Could even be a job that didn't really cause for much creativity, like you just punch in, punch out every day, and there's really nothing too exciting about it, or inspiring about it. It could be anything, quite honestly, but it definitely does speak to the transition of having to leave one space which the Eight of Cups is definitely representative of, like leaving a space, not knowing what's ahead of you, but there's a certain sense of discomfort between the time of the leaving behind and the arrival to the next destination, or as the next being, or as, as the evolved self. You just, it's kind of the unknown. You don't really know what's in store for you. But on account of these cards, it just seems like there's something positive, even if it doesn't feel like it. As I said, there's something good on the other side of this determination. But again, back to the song, the Eight of Cups is somebody that makes a decision to get up and do something about it, to make a change within themselves, for themselves, around themselves, by themselves, or by their self. It's very action oriented. It's like, as I said, like being in a relationship for so long, or in some type of relational dynamic, and just, at one point in time, just like, oh, well, I guess this is what it is. This is my life, until that last straw, and like this is, I could do better than this. Even if I could do bad all by myself, it'd be worth more. It'd be worth more than me staying here being miserable. And you take a step out. I'm not saying that it absolutely happens in this type of fantastical way where you go out to maybe you go out, take yourself out for a drink sometime shortly after that deciding moment, and you end up meeting the love of your life. It may not happen that quickly, but then again, well, as this horn is blowing me down outside, it may not, but it could, with these big energies, with the aces, it could be something serendipitous like that. Or to practicalize it, it could be the final straw at a job. And you've been trying to hold on till retirement, or trying to hold on to some particular milestone, and just one day you wake up and it's like, man, today's the day. I'm putting my 2 weeks in, or hell, today's the day I'm quitting, whatever it is. And then lo and behold, an opportunity within the next week or so, month or so, maybe year or so, comes across your path that is just everything that you could have asked for in terms of how you use and invest your creativity. Like, doesn't even feel like work because you love to do it so much. And the beautiful, there's the horns again. I think it's a kid in the car outside, but either way, it is what it is. The beautiful thing about it is, especially with the Hermit card, it's like, the reason why some may be avoiding that transitional time because it's so unknown is because you can't really control what happens after you make that decision. After you take that first step away from something or towards something else, we as humans want to be able to control, like, the what's next, or the how long until, or are we there yet? But it's saying that, when you are in the upright as the Hermit, you get to more or less appreciate the journey and soak up everything that you learn on that pathway, because maybe it doesn't happen serendipitously where you meet somebody in the next week, or you get a new creative opportunity a month from them. Maybe it's because you need the time for yourself to evolve into the energy that you're looking to attract, so that when you do meet that one, you have matured in such a space to be able to fully embrace it and embrace whomever that is. When you do come across the new job opportunity or new creative expression outlet or whatever it is, you are evolved enough to be fully activated in that role. Sometimes when we want things to come along right away is more a detriment because we're not really quite ready for it. So I'm just saying to anyone that is afraid to make a step away or in the direction of anything for that fear of unknown and not know, that uncertainty aspect of it all, just be encouraged that if it's a short time in between transition or if it's a long time, just know it's all working for your good. And I know we say that to ourselves, we say that to one another, and it sounds real good and it feels different when, like I said, when you're in the thick of it. But the other thing that can affect the journey a great deal is your perspective. So if you see the road ahead as treacherous and long and drawn out, and you're going through it fearful all the way, it's like when you're in the back of the car on a road trip and you keep asking, are we there yet? And it's like, no. And it makes the trip feel that much longer because you're just not sitting back and enjoying the scenery, looking out the window. I know I can't wait till I can just sit back and just look at the scenery out the window and not actually be the driver. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes we also crave to be able to control our ETA, so it's tough. It is tough, but I feel really incited to draw the point home that the first step is everything, to really just follow your inclination to move forward, move on, move away, move out, move up, whatever, move down. I don't know. We could be talking actual physically moving. I don't know, but it's something good here. Yeah, with the Justice card, like it's going to have, it really has the potential to have a positive result, and it's something that is just due. With the Page of Swords here, I'm getting the sense that it's whatever it is, whatever the outcome could potentially be, it's really like what someone was looking for, that someone's in the market for. Perhaps even in such a way that they didn't even know, something that they didn't even know they needed. You know what I mean? The exact change that someone's needed. It's the effect of someone's actions or decision making or shift, shift in directions or perhaps even mentality. Yeah, because it's 2 swords there. Shift in perspective. Look at that with the 10 of Pentacles. So not wait until the water runs dry really could be like, don't wait till you feel like you have no other choice before you do something, change something, shift something, pursue something. Is like all the signs could be there, just waiting for your agreement. And there's clearly a great reward at stake here. I hate to say at stake, but in question, maybe, I don't know. And I also see this Page of Swords looking in the opposite direction of the 10 of Pentacles, which is like family, but in the traditional, conventional sense as well. And it also guides me to say, sometimes the places that we're looking for relief, advancement, progression is away from the places that we feel we're accustomed to finding it. So whatever you feel called to do, which sometimes can also be a cause for apprehension or really questioning your intuition on it, is because it's not either what's expected of you or what would be like the tradition for you, whether it's by way of family, friends, environment, culture, religion, societal standards, it could be a number of things, even just as simple as a job, you know what I mean? Having a job versus pursuing a creative art or a personal business or something like that. You know, it may not be critically acclaimed. You know, you may not definitely, you may not necessarily get the support. Here's where that hermit card comes in. I mean, was it the hermit? Yeah, the hermit card comes in too. You may feel a little lonely out on the limb that you are stepping out onto, but it doesn't mean that it's not the right one. And it also doesn't mean that you're not supported in other ways, particularly in the spiritual sense. Yeah. Yep, with the hangman here. Definitely calls for looking at it in a different way, seeing things from a different perspective. As I said, like, it might not be in the traditions of the family way. As my phone goes off at 5 o'clock on the dot. Change. And it could be the difference between waiting for a change to come to you and actually being the change that you are craving. With the hangman here, it's like feeling like you need more information or more enlightenment or another sign or signal, or and maybe there is cause for that, which is also a great use for the hermit energy, to kind of being by yourself, meditating, praying, researching, going within, consulting your inner self, all of that good stuff. Maybe it is necessary to call in more enlightenment, to feel more secure about the things that you feel inspired to do. But in some cases, it's just a matter of trusting yourself, and trusting that if you can trust yourself and you feel well guided, that the universe is going to back you up one way or another. Even if family doesn't get it, if friends laugh at you and perhaps even forsake you, or what was the word? Outcast. That was what I was trying to say when I was trying to think of that word. Like, to feel outcasted, not rejected per se, but like feel outcasted. Hell, sometimes even your partner, the one you feel the closest to, doesn't really get the vision, you know, and there could be conflict there. You know, there's and here it is, back to the Eight of Cups. How do you manage that? And more importantly, how do you hold yourself, literally embrace yourself amidst that type of challenge? Do you kind of suck it up and stuff it down and say, you know, and you know, maybe even stuff yourself back into a box of what you are expected to be, or what's expected of you to do, pursue, think, believe, experience? Or do you make the judgment call that there's something more in store for you that's a better alignment than what you're currently engaging? And sometimes that's the hard thing to do, because when those types of directions from your inner self are nagging, and perhaps they go against the family way, or is contrary to the partnership that you're in, intimately, platonically, or otherwise, it goes against what you clock in to do every day. You know, that's the hard part, because sometimes we feel like almost torn in two directions, or many directions, trying to please everything and everyone but ourselves. And that's the true test at that point, you know, because if you're not going to nurture yourself to your most supreme you're not really living up to the divine dream and the divine design for your life. And then at that point, you are kind of in a stuck, stagnant position. You can't really be of much value to anybody else. You may have pacified some folks to have you stay in a space or in a way that is more palatable, maybe even accessible to them, but you wouldn't really be operating in your fullest potential for the bigger picture at hand, which also can affect those that you love, and sometimes even those that didn't get it, and didn't want to get it, that maybe outright rejected or outcasted you. Let's see what else. But that's why the Eight of Cups is so powerful, because it really does imply that someone considers all of those things, and still chooses themselves, chooses their self. And some people have walked this walk, so it's like I'm preaching to the choir right now for sure. So I guess in that case, it's just a confirmation here that you've already done the hardest part, and maybe it's just a rinse and repeat in another type of way or in another setting. But if you've already done it once, then the training wheels are kind of off, like when you've ripped that Band-Aid off of wanting to be accepted and understood and appreciated and embraced and all of that good stuff, applauded, affirmed, validated. When you rip those Band-Aids off, and you've kind of done the unknown and the dark night in some capacity, is really just maybe a refresher message here for you that whatever is next, you already have the chops to do it. If there's a greater calling that you feel guided to answer to, or a heightened responsibility, that there's a calling to, or just this new season in general, you get to carry that sense of confidence and courage along with you, well deserved, because here it is for those now perhaps that have, as I said, done the bye-bye, so long, see you later experience, as painful as it may have been or uncomfortable as it could have been. There's also the other side of that, as I said, where now you're reconditioning yourself to not to release things so much and get rid of stuff and throw away things and refuse things, maybe even keeping yourself. Maybe that's why it was also in reverse, the Hermit card. Like maybe there's a reconditioning now from that Hermit state where you've gotten quite used to being alone, and that's worked for you. And now it's time to kind of open yourself up for partnership, for reconnection, whether it be with family, friends, new, old, whatever the case may be. Working with other people where you may be used to working by yourself. A relationship or dating, or whatever it is, like that could be the other side of it that I really didn't even think about, where it takes just as much courage to come out of your shell when you've been in hermit mode as it does to go into it. It's a whole nother conditioning. So there's that too. There is that too. So there's definitely a little bit of everything for everyone up in here. For those that had something and didn't appreciate it and want to know how to reclaim that effect, that gift again on new terms and a new covenant, there's a little message for you, a little nugget for you. For those that are looking to start the path of spiritual solitude, and it's not necessarily with any any karmic residue or necessarily in a way where there are regrets or remorse per se, but it's just an awareness and an acknowledgement that it's time for something different and something new. There's that. For those that have walked the line, that walked that line, maybe been through the ring of fire a time or two, and now it's time to get ready to receive, to really open yourself up. Because for those that last crew of people sometimes can condition themselves to reject things just on account of the habit to do so. Like, nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm good over here. I'm good by myself. I'm good doing it alone. I got it type of energy. Or I'm good. I don't need no more. You know what I mean? This is just enough for me, but it's like here, clearly the universal message all around is that there is more in store for whomever is open to receive it, and for however the universe is looking to disperse it, pretty much. Everybody can get it one way or another. All right, let's see where we at. Oh man, let me just get a couple more. Wow, then we got this here. Saw that earlier, like I said. Yeah, I must have called that negative energy back in, and it could be the lowest frequency for sure, but like I said, it could also even be a hint of anxiety and worry about the future and what that gets to look like, whether you're receiving, whether you're releasing, whether you're renewing, just not being sure or comfortable with what the future holds is anxiety inducing. But let's see what's after that. What was that popped in and out? Eight of Wands, because something's coming through. It's change that's happening fast. So if you're not braced for it, and certainly if you weren't looking for it, it can be hard to manage. It's like everybody's getting what they asked for one way or another, whether it was by deed, by prayer, by energy, by action, by personal investment. Everybody, it's justice. It's cause and effect. So whatever that Eight of Wands is, it does feel overwhelming no matter what side of the spectrum you're on and everything in between, because it's been a calling in for a long time, and it's like what's flowing into the atmosphere and into auric fields as we speak is such an intensified return of energy that was already projected. Whether, again, it was by prayer, it was by how you treated others, how you managed what you had, what you've been manifesting, but it's all personal. It's all a direct return and result of whatever you've been putting out. So there's a reason why there's a range of energies that I've been talking about, because if it's the person that didn't manage their gifts well, or their resources well, whatever they had well, and their actions aligned with that frequency, the return on that investment will probably be unfavorable. Hence why we have the Nine of Swords here for the lowest frequency. And then at the very most, as I said about bracing yourself for what's incoming, that's what it is. Brace for impact, or incoming type of energy, like incoming. Because even if you were putting out the highest frequency you could embody, you couldn't even be prepared for the return on that as it's magnified by the divine. It's like, say all you've been putting out is love and light and positive vibes and good intentions, the way that that stuff is about to flow into you and probably already is can be a bit of an overwhelm, as I said, like almost like, oh, hold up, wait, you've already conditioned to question everything just by way of experience, but then a flood of the best that you could possibly imagine is like, hold up, this is too good to be true type energy. But no, it's the aces. It's all pure, it's all authentic. It's just a matter of, it's like it's a magnification of what you've already invested. So you already know what you've been given, how you've been giving it up, as they say. And that's exactly how you getting it back. But times, let's say 10, at least. You know what I mean? Probably much more than that when we're talking about divine measurement. But either way, it makes sense to kind of be like, oh my gosh, because if it's all good things, then you start to be overly thoughtful about managing it well. Am I making the right decisions? Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying yes to the right things? Am I saying no to the right things? It's all human response. It really is. And like I said, even in the lowest vibration, if there's some things that come your way that are less than favorable, it's for the purposes of either deconditioning or reconditioning, so that you can kind of course correct and shift to be that attractive force for the next incoming flow, whatever that gets to be, whenever that gets to be. Again, to be determined, not just by the divine, but also by your perspective of your experience in the present time, or at the present time. I definitely pray against the anxiety, though, no matter what, because it's just not the best posture to receive divinity. And no matter how it's coming, it's just not. And it seems like it's been a long time coming, as I said, like this is the diligent night, whatever this return is, it's been a long time coming. And perhaps, depending on who you are and where, it could be a great deal to look forward to ahead. And it's about the long haul here. Well, I guess if you don't feel like you're in a positive space with that, you wouldn't necessarily be looking forward to a long haul. But really more so what it is at the Knight of Pentacles is something, the return and the reward that is in question here is something that is long, could be long lasting. So even if you go through a bit of a dark night, like I was saying before, what you can expect to receive on the other end when you submit yourself to the process organically is something that's definitely more solid and more rewarding and sustainable. Certainly more than anything from the past that would have put you in the place that you'd be in at this point to feel like that at the Nine of Swords in the lowest frequency. It's guaranteed to be better than what it was, no matter what. No matter what, even if it's just a new state of mind, All right, let's see, a couple more. Definitely didn't really shave much time, but maybe my song took up the space that would. Thanks, Boys to Men. No, I love Boys to Men. One of the best guy groups. Yeah, here's the karma here. Of all times, for sure. That was like one of the first concerts I went to, too, that I can remember vividly, like big concerts that I went to. And I coincidentally sat in the front row, like the only concert since that I've ever been in the front row of that magnitude. But it was the Water Runs Dry concert, matter of fact, and it was, get this, it was at the Camden Waterfront, which was then I think called the Tweeter Center or something else now. It was Montel Jordan when This Is How We Do It, which always makes me laugh. When This Is How We Do It was his smash hit. So he was all the rave. He opened TLC with Left Eye, mind you. And that was when Waterfalls. Oh, and I was thinking about Waterfalls too. That's probably why, because this memory was dredging that up. When Left Eye was still with us and they were all in their silver metallic glory, and Waterfalls was their hit. And then, of course, Boys to Men. And I think then that album was like 2. It has the big 2 on it, I think, was the name of that album. And Water Runs Dry was on that album. So it was like the best concert. And I was in the front row because my godfather is a contractor, and at the time he was doing work for Sean and his mom on their home. So one of the perks was that he gave them tickets to the concert, and of course they took me. So yeah, that's just a a fond little memory I have. I was actually in their this is back in the day when groups would do like, I don't know what, I guess it was like a souvenir book, but it wasn't that night that they sold it. It was like later down the line where I guess they did like a souvenir book of the entire tour around the world and country and stuff. And I was actually, me and my family, meaning my godmother, godfather, and their kids and me were captured in a photo at that concert. So it's immortalized somewhere on some shelf somewhere, but I don't have the book anymore. So it can be fact checked. It can be proven. But yeah, Wheel of Fortune, again, that's karmic, that's dharmic, that's just fate. It just is what it is. As I was saying before, is what's coming back around of what's been put out, and as I said, it was a slow time coming, but it always gets back to wherever it's supposed to be. And fate will always land on its feet. Oh, I like that. I ain't never even heard that one before, have I? Oh, man. Yeah, and look at these 2 energies. Stark different energies. We got the 5 of Cups, and then we got the King of Cups. Somebody that's completely, saturated by their emotional state, overcome by it, overwhelmed. Okay, overwhelmed. That's the word I was probably trying to find earlier. Overwhelmed by their emotional state. And then here's somebody that's completely liberated by it. Even what's the right word? When you're in charge, when you are I can hear it. Exalted by it, their emotional state, or exalted in their emotional intelligence, certainly advanced, they have a good sense of where they stand, how they feel, but also how others are feeling, how they treat others, managing their feelings amongst others in the best and worst of times. And it's like really being sovereign in what is really the most vulnerable aspect of yourself, because your emotions are so, my God, like they're so sensitive. That energy is I want to say vulnerable, but it's like not so vulnerable. I guess people can be so vulnerable, especially when you're not impressionable. That's what it is. And no matter who you are, they can be. So certainly if you don't have a good grip on yourself and anything will set you off, or tip your scales, or plunge you into a spiral, it's a scary situation for whomever is feeling that way, first and foremost, which goes back to this idea of someone being afraid to be by themselves, or afraid, you know, that doesn't trust themselves with themselves, you know. Completely two ends of the spectrum, just as I was saying. The absolute lowest vibration of emotions you can have with the Five of Cups. And in terms of water energy is concerned, in the court cards, that's the highest with the King of Cups. And we've already had the highest in spirit, which is the Ace. And it's pretty much assumed that the King of Cups is holding the Ace, or has access to it, or is integrated with it, you know. So it's kind of like the embodiment of unconditional love or divine love in some type of way. And that's a really intense energy to manage, to embody, and then also to divulge or to project. You could do a lot of damage with emotional energy, or you could do a lot of good, you know, which I think is why cups were such the thing, and that water frequency is what led the water runs dry. This is water running dry right here. The Five of Cups. And the thing is, it's like, here it is. It's the perfect depiction of the song in that card, because yeah, there's 3 cups spilled, but there are also 2 cups behind them. So it's exactly what I was saying, where it's like you can mourn over what was lost, or you could pick up what you have and keep going. Look forward to the future. This is the upside of at least the potential of what picking up and moving forward can amount to with the King of Cups. But the lowest frequency of this energy is sad, okay? They're borderlining on depression, if not already there, but I don't know what's lower than depression, because depression is something we can all attest to experiencing at some point in time, even when we didn't know it. But it's something even darker than depression that's going on here. What's worse than depression? I guess despair. But like I said, is it really though? And I think I'm gonna just leave it there. Yeah, I think, is it really? Because these are the 2 energies to consider, observe, and acknowledge, maybe even accept in some ways, or not, you know, or not. I mean, you can at least accept the state that you're in for acknowledgement's sake, but you don't have to stay there. But the acceptance part of it is still preliminary, I suppose, for you to counteract it even, you know. So, and as I was saying before, it's a lot of avoidance that someone is experiencing, because they don't want to feel that deep. They don't want to feel so low. They don't want to feel the hurt. They don't want to feel depressed, you know. But most of the time when we're doing all the things that counteract that in a superficial way, and we're not really getting to the root of the matter, like the depth of the issue, is just prolonging the symptoms. You know, it's not really healing anything. So either way, there has to be an awareness and acknowledgement that has come to, that someone comes to grips with, so that the possibility, the best case scenario, could just be managing it, if nothing else, to manage. Hell, they got hella medications now, even just to manage depression, but to come to an even natural state of managing your emotional intelligence in a way that is healthy and productive. Yeah. And again, for those that have, and you know that they've been through that process, the King of Cups again has a great deal to look forward to in terms of what rewards and returns are in store. And I love that we're ending on the King of Cups, because contrary to the Queen of Cups, it also implies that there is you know, like there is a how can I say it, like a firm discernment of not just what you accept, but also what you offer in terms of love and compassion and sympathy and empathy and whatever the emotional essence of you that is most highly valued should be coveted, you know, and protected and held precious, you know, revered to be precious. And I love, again, it's the King of Cups because it's implied that he's going to be selective with how he shares himself in the most intimate way, for sure. Not to say that the Queen of Cups doesn't have her own, you know, covering, but the masculine energy by default is more aggressive and intentional and proactive about what is given, what is projected, you know, and what actions are taken behind that projection of love, ultimately, or spirit, whatever we're talking about in that cup that we've already decided is of high value as a reflection of the ace. So yeah. All right, yeah. Woo! Sun baby. Yes. Great things to look forward to one way or another with the World card. What? Oh my gosh, what a great way to end. So endings and new beginnings, literally in 2 cards. I mean, I know it's so cliche, but that's what is given. I mean, 4 tens between these 2 cards and how the Roman numerals are positioned. And a 1, you know what I mean? Because this is what 19 and this is 21. So it's like either way, it's just like different arrangements of the same numbers, but it's like a hard stop to some things, maybe multiple seasons, multiple endings happening all at once, which could also be that accelerated energy that we kind of saw behind the scenes with the 8 of Wands. Part of me that some things are coming to such a screeching halt that it could be a jolt to the senses as well, which just been business as usual. But as I said, nothing but good things to look forward to, no matter what, no matter where you are with it. If you can conceive of it, that's the key. Because if you're just going to be in a state of fear and lack and despair, then that's what's going to continue to generate. And perhaps that's a part of the karmic cycle that some have manifested for themselves, at least for a time, until they can spin themselves out of it, you know. But I think that's been the purposes of my message. I realize that they've been very, for me, dark and low vibrational, but there's a certain, even the last message when I was reading on the Queen of Swords and the Death card and how she's like an assassin with the tongue, that low vibration still stands. But I also was like, you kind of talking about you, because I realized these readings lately have been unusually cutthroat and like very direct and blunt and almost like brutally honest as far as how I'm seeing the energy in the cards. And I make it a point, if you know, you know, to read the highest vibration that I possibly can, which is why even when I'm reading something low, I can usually transmute it within the reading to something higher, some silver lining of hope yet still. That's just my default setting. As a matter of fact, I think some part of my reconditioning and the reason why I've been reading so dark is because some of my dark nature needs to be more integrated just for the sake of telling the truth, you know what I mean? And just calling it how I see it. No sugarcoating whatsoever. Not that I'm trying to, but because that's my default as a Sagittarius sun and a Libra of so many other placements, to try to find the highest vibration. But yeah, like I said, it depends on how you conceive it, your circumstances, and what you're able to see is possible for yourselves. But it's definitely, a strong polarity, a stark polarity here in the readings, and it has been for a while. So I would say some on the darker side for me than anything. But my prayer is always for the greatest good of all, no matter what, no matter what the experience is. I'm not calling in the worst for anybody. I'm just reading it how I see it and how I feel it. And as sure as this reading is ending on a high note, it's definitely the end of things that are no longer productive and prosperous, and that are no longer sustainable in the new frequency of creation that we are embarking upon. But it's certainly something, it's greatly positive in the sense of the things that are to be anticipated. Like sometimes new can be scary, but it can also be exciting, and exhilarating, as a matter of fact. And that's what I'm calling in, even with all the things that I still don't know about what's next and even what's now sometimes, most times. But I know that it's always going to be me having great expectations for the absolute best for my life and for whomever falls under the sound of my voice, for sure, So anyway, of course, I pray the same for you and yours and everything that you hold dear and near to your heart. And Godspeed, for sure. And I'm going to leave it there. I mean, what's more to say when you got the Sun in the World card? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can read that for yourself. All right. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.